Chiefs Kingdom has started its own history class.
This is a legendary run by a legendary team. You got to enjoy every minute of it.
Let's find a way to Tagovailoa is in trouble. Sacked. Back in the end zone. Caught. Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Stone cold gets the big sack.
The Chiefs kicked off the 2024 season with a bang last week, defeating the Ravens in a game that came down to centimeters. And now, following a few extra days off, we'll have a chance to stick in the win column against an old foe in the Cincinnati Bengals. We are 2 hours from kickoff. You've waited all week for this very moment. It's finally here. It is time for football in Chiefs Kingdom. Let's do this. My name is Matt McMullen, joined by voice of the Chiefs, Mitch Holthus. This is Field Pass, presented by StorageMart. And Mitch, whenever these teams get together, it is always a battle.
It's really been since 2018. Patrick's first year as starter as QB1. We've played these guys a lot, and it's usually been in a big stage or meaning a lot. This is week 2, but still, these two, it feels like a division opponent. I talked to Andy Reid about that, but two teams that don't like each other very much, and usually not just frequency, but intensity.
I think it's the best rivalry in the NFL right now. I don't know, just all the things that are often on the line. Now, the Bengals lost to the Patriots last week in one of the more surprising outcomes of Week 1. And really, I think the Bengals lost that game in the trenches and on both sides of the ball. We're going to talk about both, but I want to start with the Bengals defense against that Patriots offense last week, specifically their rush defense. Now, they allowed 170 rushing yards last week to New England. Running back Ramondre Stevenson led the way with 120 of those yards all by himself. He also led the NFL in several categories, including yards after contact with 118 and broken tackles with 10. The Bengals really struggled against the run last week.
It was surprising because they still have Hendrickson, they still have Hubbard. The linebackers with Logan Wilson, I'm not sure entirely healthy. I think Logan Wilson's a really good player. And then Jermaine Pratt. But the fact that they just kind of got run over by New England, and their DBs did not tackle well, especially their corners. And that was a big part of that game.
And it helped the Patriots shorten the game. New England had 3 scoring drives of at least 12 plays last week. There's only so much time on the clock, so ultimately Cincinnati only had 8 offensive possessions last week, fewest of any team in the NFL. Now, the average scoring drive for the Chiefs last week took only 3 minutes. I don't fully expect Coach Reid to deploy a keep-away strategy, just not his style. But I do think a commitment to the running game could make some sense.
Yeah, timely place runs and then trying to win the line of scrimmage is big. We know that the Chiefs can run the ball a variety of ways, including a 21-yard end around for a touchdown last week by Xavier Worthy. But and Cincinnati's going to be desperate to win. We'll get into those numbers in a second. 0-2 just means the world, or being 1-1. There's a drastic difference in the league. But still, yeah, the run game could be there, should be there, based on what New England did. But New England got yards after contact. Ramondre Stevenson was so good after getting to the second level after initial contact. And again, if Cincinnati's corners are not willing to tackle, you're going to get big plays in the run game.
Well, and here's the good news. The best game of Isaiah Pacheco's career in terms of rushing yards happened against these guys last year in Week 17. He rushed for 130 yards on just 18 carries in that game, averaging 7.2 yards per carry. Isaiah could have a big game here today.
Yeah, and I like what the running back room has become. We talked about the formation of that room this week with Matt Nagy on our radio pregame stuff. But the fact that now Samaje Perine is wearing red today. And
we love that.
White, I love it. And Carson Steele. So there is some definition, form, and substance to the running back room that, frankly, was an uncertainty throughout training camp. It's not an uncertainty now. And you'll see all 3 of those guys get unleashed today at one way, shape, or another.
Looking forward to it. Let's talk about the other side as well, this Bengals offensive line. They allowed 3 sacks last week on quarterback Joe Burrow. But I think even when Burrow wasn't pressured, he was feeling the pass rush. And look at these numbers here. This is a little nerdy. Bear with me, okay? On throws where Burrow was not pressured last week, his average time to throw was only 2.33 seconds. And on those throws, his average depth of target was only 4.5 yards downfield. It's all a complicated way of saying, a fancy way of saying, that they were not throwing the ball downfield at all last week, which is surprising. That's normally their bread and butter. It was all short stuff last week. The Chiefs have to make sure they're not allowing that here today.
2 things. They were 30th in the league in Week 1 in total offense. But more importantly, and this is to your point, they were 22nd in yards per attempt in the passing game. Jamar Chase had only 2 deep routes that I can remember in the game. And so they did not go vertical at all. Jamar Chase had 6 catches, and all of them were underneath, crossing pivots and that sort of thing. So I'm curious what we'll do today with Joe Burrow. But I think part of it's protection, Part of it may be his injury to his hand, who knows? And part of it may be trying to get Jamar Chase up to speed. He wasn't there for any of the training camp, or he was holding in. So Cincinnati, to me, is a mystery right now on offense.
I think sure tackling, very important here in this game, particularly from our defensive backs. But also that pass rush is important, making sure Joe Burrow is uncomfortable throughout this game. And the good news for the Chiefs, their pass rush was very good last week. The box score doesn't really show it, just one sack against Lamar Jackson, of course, the Ravens quarterback. But Jackson scrambled 5 times when under pressure last week. And you might think, well, that's what Jackson always does. Not that much. 5 times is a lot. Lamar Jackson had not scrambled 5 times when pressured since week 5 of the 2021 season. I think if it was any other quarterback but Lamar last week, the Chiefs end up with 4 or 5 sacks.
And with Joe Burrow, so far in his career, he has been sacked 155 times. That's just crazy. He hasn't been in the league that long, and then he's been hit about 220 more times.
Wow.
And those hits those have a cumulative effect. And so, yes, with Lamar Jackson, the fact that he had nearly 400 yards of total offense last week, but he had a Houdini out of a lot of it, and give him credit. He did a great job, but he was getting hit and pressured. And Burrow's not Lamar Jackson. He's going to get hit and pressured in this game. And so when the Chiefs have beaten Joe Burrow here in the 22 AFC Championship game, 3 sacks. Remember Chris Jones, big pressure and sack down there to our right. But the Chiefs have bludgeoned him and made him, if not sacking him, hurrying him and hitting him.
Well, even last week, Chris Jones was great. George Karlaftis was great. Each of those guys had 6 pressures against Baltimore. Hopefully a bunch of pressures here today and sacks against Joe Burrow. Now, looking at the Bengals pass rush, they have a pretty good one as well. And Trey Hendrickson, he's the kind of player who can wreck a game.
He can, and here's what I think they're going to do, Matt. Cincinnati's best chance to win this game is to replicate the Raiders of Christmas Day a year ago. Both Hendrickson and Hubbard have the ability, especially Hendrickson, because his stats were awesome last year. Only T.J. Watt had sacks. They can line up on what's called a 7 or a 9 technique. Think of our rookie left tackle, Kingsley Suat-Maatia, who is the biggest key to this game. They will line Hendrickson up way to his far left, almost where he's out of my vision.
Like a wide 9.
A wide 9. And all of a sudden now, Suat-Maatia, who still has to think about the inside shoulder, and they got him last week. The Ravens got him early on that inside shoulder. He now has to be able to kick step to get out here because Hendrickson's motor and speed rush is enough to get around it. But he also has to deal with the inside pass rush as well. It's a big day for Suat-Maatia. And honestly, the Bengals' best chance in this game is to be the Raiders of Christmas Day of last year.
Yeah, hopefully not. That was not a fun day. Let's have a good day.
But it's going to be their approach. Just watch.
I was proud of Kingsley for how he performed last week. What a first test against the Baltimore Ravens in prime time when everyone is watching. Some good stuff, some stuff he can learn from as well. But hopefully he can build on that progress here today. And if he can, it means more time for Patrick Mahomes and all these weapons in the passing game. What are your expectations for the passing game here today?
I'm really fired up about the passing game. And I thought, and we mentioned this during the week, but I really thought that the vertical ability, now Hollywood Brown's on IR, we'll talk about that, but the fact that Xavier Worthy can get vertical, it opens it up for Rashee Rice. Not as much, it'll help Kelsey, but it really helps Rashee Rice. It's like he has a 40-acre pasture now with which to work, and I really think Rice is better in his route running. And he's got 1,000 routes that he can run in that first to get to the second level, and then with his tackle breaking ability, he has a chance to get third level, which he did last week against Baltimore. So I get really excited about that. But the other thing, and my thesis of all my shows this week, including with you, have been week 1 to week 2. It's so big at football at any level that it's really big in the National Football League. A guy I'm excited about is Noah Gray. I really think he had his best game last week, both blocking, ran the underneath screen here, but can he do it week 1 to week 2? Can Xavier Worthy, who was a phenom last week, week 1 to week 2? And there's guys on defense that fit this same equation. Kingsley Suat-Maatia, week 1 to week 2. How will they respond? We're playing 4 rookies on offense. Carson Steele, same thing with Wiley. So week 1 to week 2 is gigantic because this league usually doesn't allow you, if you're a rookie, to have 2 great weeks in a row to start the season.
Let's do that for Xavier here today, though.
Let's do it. All those guys.
Yeah, right. This offense was explosive last week. It was fast, but most of all, it was fun. For more on this offense, I had a chance to catch up with Amy Trask from CBS Sports earlier this week. Amy Trask. Amy's an awesome analyst on CBS Sports. She used to be the CEO for the Raiders. We're not going to hold that against her here today because she's so good at what she does now on CBS Sports. And Amy, I want to ask you about the Chiefs offense last week. A lot of talk on the offseason about the new pieces for Patrick Mahomes on offense, and we saw them really deployed effectively against the Ravens last week. What stood out to you about this new look Chiefs offense?
Well, two words, Xavier Worthy. The addition of that speed, something that the Chiefs did not have last season, is going to be tremendous for the team. And not simply when he is the target on any given play, but because he will stretch the field and thus cause opposing defenses to have to cover the Chiefs, defend against the Chiefs differently than they did last year.
And when you're looking at this Bengals defense, obviously it's a defense with a lot of good players. Lou Anarumo, one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL. Not the game they probably would have liked against the Patriots last week, but we obviously still have a lot of respect for this defense. How can the Chiefs offense, and maybe Worthy in particular, find success against these guys on Sunday?
Well, the first thing I think they should do is clip a copy of that which a cornerback for the Bengals said either yesterday or today, in which he said of Xavier Worthy, all he has is speed. He essentially said he can do nothing but run straight and run very fast. He has no talent otherwise. So the first thing I would do, were I the Chiefs, is I would clip that, cut that, and put it on the bulletin board. And for those of you that don't think bulletin boards are a real thing, they're a real thing. And I know that because I was the one cutting things, clipping things, and running them to the equipment manager and saying, put this on the bulletin board, put this on the bulletin board. And by the way, I did that once when we were in Kansas City to play the Chiefs. So look, they've got to find a way to stop him. Obviously, the corner should not have said of Xavier Worthy what he did because he's tough to defend.
Well, hopefully a lot of fun for Coach Reed, Patrick, and Xavier here today against the Bengals. Amy, awesome stuff. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you. And I will share with Chief fans that which I've shared before. Chiefs fans, yours was the hardest environment in which we ever played on the road. You create a home field advantage for your team that, in my experience, was the best for when we were on the road.
All right, great stuff there from Amy Trask. Mitch, you know, if a lifelong Raider like Amy says those nice things about Kansas City, she must really mean them.
I always respected Amy Trask. I think it's great that she now is in the role she's in but she was always like the hard-nosed protector of Al Davis. And it was like, you don't get through the warrior princess to get to the castle of the enemy. But I've always admired her, and I think she's brilliant, actually. And so she's great for the league. But her perspective is something to pay attention to because she's seen everything.
Yeah, it was cool. I was like, are we sure that Amy wants to talk to us? She did, and she was great and said some very nice things. So we appreciate her. Also love what she said about Xavier Worthy. We've talked about it over the last 20 minutes or so, but what a debut for him. He became just the second player in the Super Bowl era to have a rushing touchdown of 20 or more yards and a receiving touchdown of 20 or more yards in his NFL debut. He was incredible, and for more on his performance, we caught up with Xavier earlier this week on our podcast.
What an opening game, and what a start to a career. Xavier Worthy with us, 2 touchdowns in the victory against the Baltimore Ravens. So now a couple days after that, way to simmer on it. What are your thoughts after that game, getting ready for week 2?
Man, it was a great game just to be able to have that feeling in my season opener. But I'm just on to the next. I'm ready for the next. I feel like that was just a taste of what I'm going to be doing this season.
But your first touch, you end up in the end zone. Walk us through that play. What was it like being in the huddle, knowing you were going to get the football, and then to finish your first ever touch in the NFL with a touchdown? How'd that feel?
I kind of knew I was getting the ball before Pat called the play because he looked at me before he got all the way in. So I'm like, okay, this got to be coming to me. He was like, it's in the round. Come on, you got to get in. And just hearing that call and just seeing everybody going out there and giving the effort they did, everybody had amazing blocks in that play. So just having teammates like that is just huge.
This at training camp, we had a discussion, you and I, and it was really impressive because you brought up Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah.
You brought up Tyreek Hill and what Coach did for those guys in their career. Tell us more a little bit about that and what you think Coach can do for you in your career.
Yeah, a guy like Deshaun Jackson, for example, is probably more like kind of like my comparison. He was about 168, 167, same size as me. And the way Coach kind of schemed up things for him, it just kind of shows like he knows how to use players like me. So just having something like that is amazing for a guy like me, being small, but we're also able to run routes, physical at times, and just be able to make plays.
you told us after you got drafted that you knew you were destined to be a Chief for years now. To have that culminate in a game like you had on Thursday where the crowd's going crazy, you have 3 touches and 2 of them are touchdowns. Just what was that experience like to know that you wanted to be a Chief, you watched the Chiefs on TV, and now you're making those big plays for the Chiefs?
Man, that's a crazy feeling. Just to be able to have that. I told everybody before I even thought about getting drafted, I said I'm going to play for the Chiefs. So it was like just to be able to, like, I'm the only one that said I was going to play for a team, and I'm playing on the team I said. So that's just a crazy thing. And then making plays for the team you said you're going to play for, I mean, you just can't think of that.
You just brought up something that's interesting. Week 1 to week 2, this incredible debut, but to do it again and to be ready for the Bengals, what about your mindset of getting ready to try to crank it up again?
Right. I feel like that just comes with your preparation. I feel like whatever you're going to do on game day, whether that's Thursday, Sunday, is what you do during the week. I feel like your preparation is what makes you play good in the game. If you have not good preparation, you're not going to play good. So just having that preparation I had last week was going to lead me to that success.
All right, great hearing from Xavier there. Obviously a very talented player, but his humble nature really impresses me. What do you think?
No, we're getting more there than the 4.21 speed. And I saw that even as early as the spring. He's a tough, instinctive football player. No, he's not big, but he's tough. And his self-awareness, to me, is the biggest thing coming into this game. He knows week 1 to week 2 is big. Week 1's gone. And Coach Reed's told him, too, like week 1, it doesn't make a career. And so just him being self-aware of that, and I think with the rest of his package, I look for him to have another really good day today along with Rashee Rice.
Yeah, excited for Xavier Worthy. We got the inactives. They were early today. They were late last week. Now they're early today, so we have them already. For the Chiefs, no big surprises. The good news is Kansas City is relatively healthy coming into this game. The one bummer is Hollywood Brown, and you won't see him on the inactives list. That's because he was placed on injured reserve on Friday. No timetable right now for Hollywood's return. That's a bummer, but otherwise this team is pretty healthy right now.
Yeah, listen to the radio open because remember the 514 area code coming down the hill at camp?
Yes. We were so excited about it.
I'm switching it. It's the 1-4 authenticator code.
Okay.
So
all right.
a 2-digit authenticator code. That's what we're going with. But I'm excited about those 2 guys. And don't forget Justin Watson, this receiving core. Hopefully Sky Moore can get involved and be involved in this package. And with McCole Hardman, it's not like they're void of receivers.
And Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, I don't want to leave him out. Just catch the touchdown this time because that was a touchdown, brother.
Hopefully a few chances for Juju here in this game. Looking at the Bengals, they are missing a couple of guys. One big one is wide receiver T. Higgins, one of the better receivers in the NFL. I think he's a great complement to Jamar Chase in this offense. We've seen the bad side of that numerous times in our games against the Bengals. He was doubtful coming in with a hamstring injury, not going to play. That's a big deal.
The other thing I mentioned in that open was in the 21 AFC Championship game that the Bengals won here, they had Jamar Chase in his rookie year. He was huge. T. Higgins, and then Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd's a Titan. Chase is disgruntled, and Higgins is out. So their wide receiver core looks very different than the one the Chiefs have faced really since in the last 4 years since Jamar Chase has been their first-round draft pick.
One less thing for the DBs here in Kansas City to worry about. Don't worry about T. Higgins here today. They will have tight end Tanner Hudson. He was doubtful coming in with a knee injury, but he is not on their inactives report as of now, as far as we could tell. So looks like Tanner Hudson's going to play here in this game. Kind of a sneaky, productive player. Had 400 receiving yards last year for them. They are missing offensive tackle Amarius Mims, their first-round pick this year. He hasn't practiced in like a month with a pec injury. Hurts their offensive line depth. And defensive tackle Chris Jenkins, their second-round pick this year out of Michigan. He has a thumb injury, not going to play. Hurts their defensive tackle depth. But overall, I think Higgins is the big one.
Attack these dudes. Attack them. Orlando Brown Jr. is on the left side. We know him all too well. He's got a Super Bowl ring from his time here. And then on the right tackle, they went out and got another Brown in a one-year deal.
Trent Brown, yeah.
Trent Brown, but and he's been around the block. Raiders, his former Raider, former San Francisco 49er, but attack those dudes. We talk about Kingsley Suat-Maatia having to deal with Hendrickson in specific, but they got to deal with our guys. And so the Chiefs today could eat. Not only sack Burrow, pressure him, hit him, and hurry him.
And the Bengals are banged up right now, but I also don't really care because I've watched enough Chiefs and Bengals football to know that it's always going to be a battle against these guys.
Can I mention this?
Of course.
0-2. If they go 0-2, they'll be 0-2. We know this. I mean, they'll be 1-11 in a 6-year span under Zach Taylor in the first 2 weeks of the season. That would be the worst of any NFL team in 55 years.
Let's make that happen. What do you say?
And if they're 0-2, they have a 12% chance to make the playoffs. If you're 2-0, if the Chiefs can get there, you have a 64% chance of making the playoffs. This game is a playoff game for Cincinnati.
When the schedule came out for us, we talked about how difficult playing Baltimore and Cincinnati back-to-back would be. The opportunity is there for the Chiefs to go 2-0 in that stretch. And as awesome as last week was, the perfect encore to that game will be beating the Bengals here today. For Mitch Holthus, I'm Matt McMullen. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Let's go get a victory!